Hello, this is Chris Cooper, and a big welcome to the Business Elevation Show. It's great to be back with you again for yet another week. This is the show where I bring to you special people from around the world who are really trying to contribute, contributing to the world in a big way, and contributing to it in a way that improves the world, and at a time where there are a lot of challenges globally. Today, I'm going to be introducing you to Paula Reid. I think you're going to find this an absolutely fascinating conversation. And Paula's in Ukraine as well, which makes it also extremely interesting. Last week's show, we had Judy Robinette. And Judy is a fantastic friend of the show. She's one of the most connected people that I know. She is an angel investor. She has leading a firm now that is investing in organizations around space exploration. And we were talking about her incredible work around connection. I always recommend listening to podcasts when I've done them with Judy Robinette, because you'll always find something interesting. And on today's show, we're going to be talking about why we need more heroes. We're going to be talking with, I think, somebody who is a hero. So we're going to be talking to Paula Reid today. She's been working with a favourite charity of mine called Hopeful, with a wonderful mutual friend, David Fox Pitt, MBE, who's involved in that programme. And also, just before I do that, I've recently, with the community that I lead called the Elevation Collective, we've created an ebook. It's called Thrive and Do Good. And it's available for free from chriscooper.co.uk if you scroll down the page and share some insights and inspiration. We do mention Hopeful in there as well, around some themes that could help you to thrive and do good and step up and contribute to something positive in this very, very challenging world right now. So my guest today is, as I mentioned, Paula Reid. She's an adventurer. She's a speaker, she's an author, and she describes herself as an adventure psychologist. She has skied to the South Pole. She's yacht raced around the world. She's supported humanitarian activities in Ukraine. And she really helps people to perform and grow and thrive in uncertainty, adversity, and challenge. And, today she's sitting in 95 degrees of heat in Ukraine. She's been supporting feeding 1,000 people free meals with the charity Hopeful. So just one example of the things that she does. She actually draws on more than 120 adventures. She's got a master's degree in positive psychology. She's pioneering work is around adventure psychology. She's got a great TEDx you can check out as well, which is We Need More Heroes. And we're going to talk today about some of her lessons around the need for heroes, her remarkable humanitarian work as well. We're going to talk about Hopeful too, and I hope what this does is it inspires you to step up and contribute in some way to improving the world, to a better future for us all. And by the way, if you've not listened to this show before, or the Business Elevation Show, it's now one of the longest running podcasts in the world. We're just approaching 15 years, and it's just a privilege to keep bringing to you special people like Paula. So Paula, a big welcome to you from Ukraine.
Thank you very much. Dziękuję, as I say out here, which is thank you.
Yeah, it's an absolute pleasure. We had the privilege of meeting in person, didn't we, a few weeks ago in London. And what an amazing event to celebrate the work of Hopeful and all those people who've supported it, including you. Do you want to just tell us a little bit about where you are right now, and why are you in Ukraine?
Yes, so I'm not going to show exactly where I am right now, Chris, for security reasons. But I am in Ukraine. I'll say that. And I've come out here this time. This is my 8th visit out here, so get quite used to it. And today, as you say, we were serving 1,000 free meals. Yesterday, we were serving some children who were orphaned, or they were internally displaced, so missing family and home, of course. It was a school sports day, so we were giving them some bananas and ice creams and stuff. And the day before, we were at a military hospital for the amputees and wounded, with some shocking, traumatic sights there, going around the wards and having a tour, and again giving out just free food and really just having a chat. So that's just 3 days in a row out here, of the sort of work that I've done. But we also serve animal shelters. So I've been to 2 dog shelters out here as well, 1,000 dogs altogether, that we support. And we've also got a PTS mental health program for veterans. And then finally, we've got a huge challenge event in August out here in the Carpathian Mountains. Again, it's for the veterans, so everyone can take part, but it's a great big yomp, as we call it, up to 80 kilometers within 24 hours. So a huge endurance event that we're running. There are shorter distances for those that don't fancy taking on the gold 80K, but it's done as part of a challenge, of course. Quite mad people enjoy endurance challenges. So if any veterans want to take part and, get their fitness back up, but also all the proceeds, all the money goes to the veteran charities too. So that's in August. And we've been out here wrecking the route and cutting away all the dead wood and getting all that sorted too. So it's been really busy.
That's absolutely amazing. And I know some of those dogs you're giving them, rehoming them with veterans, aren't you? Is that correct?
Yeah, it's an interesting project actually. We're building a shelter in Mykolaiv, Kherson, which is in the southeast of Ukraine, really. And the idea is to have accommodation for 12 veterans where they stay for a period of time, befriend the dogs, help look after them, and then ideally they get a buddy relationship going with a stranded stray dog. So you've got a two-way mutual therapy going on between dog and person, which is always beneficial, as I'm sure everyone knows. And ideally, they walk out of there having adopted a dog or two. So it's a really good win-win setup. And we're just finishing building the actual accommodation. Still need some more money, Chris. Still need some more money for it. But the bare bones of the shelter are made, and the concrete's there and the windows are in, I think. So really excited to launch that. Probably again, maybe August, September, and get those veterans in there receiving therapy from the dogs and vice versa, which is absolute win-win, as I say.
Amazing. How much money do you need to find for something like that?
Well, we've been giving them trickle amount. We've been trying to give them £1,500 a month for quite a while now. So I believe we needed about another, ideally £10,000 to finish it off.
Yeah, it's such a moving work that you do there. I think I met when I came to your event, Andrea, who was working on the front as a medic with a team of medics and working 7 days a week with barely a break, really.
Yeah.
I think she'd been there for 3.5 years, and she described it actually as one of the best jobs in the world, which I thought was incredible considering the stress and the strain. And David told me there was 100,000 troops had come back from the front line with limbs missing.
Yeah. And that number's building all the time. So I've worked along the front line, and at least there's a real focus. The focus is to survive on the front line. It's literally just survive, and it's very intense, of course, load of pressure, as you say. But the simplicity is just to survive. I think almost the sadder part of this now, more and more actually, is when you go from the east to the west, and there you've got the rehabilitation problem. So as you say, we've got 100,000 amputees now and building, of course. So you've got a critical energy in the east of survival, but actually in the west you've then got all the orphans, the IDPs, the wounded dogs, the veterans with traumatic moral injuries and stress, and of course amputees. So it's actually quite sad in the West. It's perhaps not quite as stressful, not quite as dangerous, but then you've got more depression and tiredness and trying to find the will to live. So 2 days ago we were at this military hospital, and there was a man there, triple amputee, and he's lost his eyesight in the same incident.
Oh.
So he's doing exercises on a bed with a physiotherapist, and he's trying to move his one remaining limb to try and build some muscles up. And he's lost 3 of his limbs and his eyesight in one injury, but determined to recover and recuperate. And that's amazing, right? It's amazing. It's the sight of him working out in the hospital has obviously burned a memory in my mind. So yeah, I don't know what to say about that. It was just a very difficult sight, and one that I'll never forget. But that's going on out here, and it's getting worse and worse as more and more people, of course, return from the front line broken mentally and physically.
Crikey! And how do you cope with that when you're experiencing this? Because you've eight trips out there, and I think 600 volunteers or so have been out, haven't they? To
Yes, and as you mentioned, Andrea as well, working under extreme duress. So, um, you've got to look after your first aiders too, of course. And I'm not a first aider, but you've still got to look after these people that are also trying to help. So yeah, Andrea's an extreme hero. I'm a mini little hero, but I've got no military training, no military background. So, but I feel like a normal human being, just someone who lives in the south of the UK, and it's extremely distressing to witness and hear actually the stories that you hear. But I feel it's an honour to be out here. It's an honour to witness or hear these people's stories or make eye contact, even though it's painful. I think we can't turn a blind eye. And you mentioned heroes at the start of this chat, which we'll come on to, but there's something also about recognizing, acknowledging, seeing, hearing, feeling the things that go wrong in the world. Otherwise, we're just going to, be ignorant and maybe blissfully happy. But for me, part of it is to see, to hear, to feel what's going on out here, and being here face to face, heart to heart, is really important.
yeah, because we can be very divorced from it, can't we? It just feels like a story, and Ukraine is that story is it's been a long time now. It's ebbed and flowed, hasn't it? Sometimes it comes more into our conscious, and other times when things like Iran happen, it loses its focus. But it's been enormous, hasn't it? The consequences, and from my perspective, the depth of depravity is unbelievable in this day.
Yeah, there's some incredibly awful things going on around the world, and I can totally understand people need time out from that. So to choose to not think about it for a day or a week or an hour, I get that, and we need to cope. So with people who are luckily enough not to be so much on the front line, wherever that is around the world, it's a choice to have some time out and to not think and remember these awful things that are going on. But I just think part of our obligation, if you like, is to remember now and again, right? To purposely choose to reconnect, even though it's painful and difficult, with some of the stuff that's going on in your neighborhood or in the world, that to at least think about. There's a minute silence out here every day. So 9 o'clock every morning, the whole country stops. The traffic pulls over, people get out of their cars, and there's a minute silence every day at 9 o'clock. And then they play the national anthem, which I quite like. It's a really great national anthem, I must say. It's one of the rousing ones. And it's fantastic, right? And I almost feel like the whole world should stop for a minute every day at 9 o'clock to remember, to feel gratitude, to remind ourselves of what it means to be human, to love, and all that. So it works so well out here, and I almost feel like we all need to do that for at least 1 minute every day.
I think that's actually a really good idea. I definitely do. We should all, as you say, we should stop and we should think. Yeah, and consider the challenges, and maybe consider our role in maybe helping, in some way, the world. So I'm feeling a bit choked up, actually, just thinking about what what we're sharing about at the moment. Let's just move away a little bit from that, and I'm sure we'll come back again. Tell us a little bit about your journey and how you came to do what you do. We've mentioned there are 120 adventures. You don't have a military background, but you've obviously had the wanderlust at some point in your life started. Tell us, where did that come from, and tell us a little bit about an adventure or two that really stick out in your mind.
Yeah, sure. I don't always look the type, so people need to sort of like try and connect me doing all these crazy things and looking like a normal person, hopefully. But yeah, I think as a kid, it was just, starting growing up, exploring the local neighborhood, getting on my bicycle like a lot of kids do, and rooting around the woods and the fields and old houses and just having a great old adventurous time when I was growing up, getting muddy and dirty and stung by stinging nettles and falling out of trees and all that sort of stuff. So it started there. Love being outside, love just adventuring even locally. And then I did the classic 1 year backpacking around the world with everything, in your backpack, doing the whole tour around the world and had a fantastic time doing that. But then since then, I've done some iconic adventures and some not so iconic ones. So there's the big famous things, like, as you mentioned at the start, sailing around the world. I did the Global Challenge around the world yacht race, which is 24-hour racing in very extreme conditions around Cape Horn, Southern Ocean. Crazy, intense experience on the dynamic sea and in the weather and all that crazy. And then I've skied to the South Pole, which is another iconic huge adventure to do. And I think both of those are similar in how intense and impactful they were on me. So I'm equally proud of achieving both, but there were such different experiences. Solo mental skiing to the South Pole versus team dynamic sailing around the world. Very different, but both I think equally difficult, and I'm equally proud of achieving them. And then I've made up some adventures. I've been backpacking and kayaking and cycling in various countries. I've cycled across 20 countries now. I'll get my little tent on my bike. Quite often go on my own, cycle 80 miles a day, find a field and put my little tent up and eat some cheese. And then go to bed quite early because there's not a lot to do when you're on your own in a very small tent, but quite tired, and get up with the sunrise. So that's the nice bit. You wake up at 5 with sunlight coming into your tent and get up and you look around and you're on your own on this field and there's birds singing and all that. Get on the bike again. So I love that. That's a great adventure. Just traveling right across the country, experiencing the local weather and geography and culture and food and so yeah, I do that. I do one or two of those every year, and had a fantastic time rafting down the Zambezi last November, complete with hippo attacks and rapids. So I love all that, and it's just I feel fully alive when I'm doing that. So when you're fully present and you feel like really, here and now, and then maybe you might experience flow, which is when you're doing something like playing a guitar or painting a picture or running, and you get that experience of flow when you lose sense of self and time. So I love feeling present and alive and in flow where you're really making the most of life. And for me, adventure does that easily for me. It's full of well-being for my physical and mental health as well, to be outside and exploring and talking to people and traveling, kayaking, cycling. It's all good. I love it. As you can tell from my face.
And do you enjoy being on your own as much as being with people?
Yeah, I always get asked team or solo,
Yeah.
and it's very hard for me to choose because I think I am
Really?
about 50-50. I love when I'm on my own, I'm savoring more, so I'm more aware of my senses, the smells, the sights, looking, listening. I'm much more savoring the moment and having this really mindfulness experience, but also it encourages me to talk more to other people. So, you're more likely to sit down and have a coffee with a stranger when you're on your own rather than just sticking with the person that you know. So I love solo, and it means that you're really liberated to make every decision yourself. You can stop when you want to stop. You can eat cake when you want to eat cake. You can crack on when you've got some energy. You can collapse when you've got no energy. You're completely independent and free when you're solo, and you haven't got somebody else to worry about. But then when you're with someone, you've got somebody to chat to, someone to laugh with, and quite often somebody to share a challenging time with. Because if you fall off your bike or if you have an angry person having a go or you get lost, you've at least then got someone to share that with. And I think that's good for us to have the social connection as well. So I love both.
Yeah, 'cause that's quite interesting. Because sometimes when you're so when you're on your own, so you can experience things when it might be good to have someone else to share that with. And then if you're working, closely with people on adventures, from the little bits I've done in my life, you can find there are people that become a little bit like a piece of gravel in your shoe. The relationship you can start to kind of feel a bit abrasive,
Wear
can't
you
it? A bit
down.
challenging, and yeah,
Yeah,
maybe
that's all
maybe
part of the challenge, isn't it,
yeah.
Chris? When you're doing a tough thing and then you've got a tough person to deal with, it's double tough, right?
So what? I mean, would you describe yourself? Have you managed to make adventure then? Your profession almost.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
weave it. I think
How do you,
my clients, I
how do
work
you do
with a
that?
lot of leaders. Are you hearing me okay?
Yeah, I think it's
Oh, sorry.
brilliant. Far
Good,
better than
good.
I ever imagined.
I know it's amazing out here.
Yeah.
It's again the resilience of the Ukrainians fixing the electricity or the power or the Wi-Fi, and they're fantastic. Um, yeah, I weave. I think the experiences and the wisdom that I get from adventuring goes down well with, like, leadership. You've got a lot of leadership in your audience, I bet, but it's about, as you say, dealing with uncertainty, and the unknown and adversity and challenge and change and all that. So I think all the adventure stories and experience and wisdom and strategies are great with especially leadership level, um, how to survive, cope, and thrive difficult times. But also, as you mentioned, my company's actually called Adventure Psychology. So yes, I do call myself an adventure psychologist, but the company that I own is Adventure Psychology. So what are the tips, tools, strategies, mindset that we benefit from when going on an adventure, which includes curiosity, being open-minded and exploring, dealing with uncertainty, unknowns, endurance as well. How do we endure? Because adventure is longer than a sport. If you think about sports psychology, great, love it. It's about high performance, but normally for a short period of time, within known conditions. So if you think the psychology, I don't know, of a boxing match, for instance, there's a set piece, right, in time and physical space. But with adventure, you've got to endure. So how do we eke out our energy, mental, physical, spiritual energy, to be able to carry on and stay healthy? So endurance is a big one as well. Adventure psychology, how to cope, how to survive, how to thrive in difficult, challenging conditions.
And you do talk a lot about, you mentioned there about going into the unknown, knowingly.
Going knowingly into the unknown is my
Yeah,
strat line, yes.
yeah. So talk a little bit more about that, because I think that is, it feels like a really important confidence step, really, for people. There's something about confidence in there to be prepared to go into the unknown. I did a little workshop yesterday, for day before yesterday, on confidence, and it was just very interesting that I'm working with young people around their confidence. And then I actually used AI to actually say, so I'd used AI to help me with build some of this, and I asked it, knowing me as you know me, where do you think confidence might be holding me back? And it was actually really interesting what it came out with, because it talked to me about, actually, Chris, your opportunity is maybe you're playing a bit safely, just leading a community when you should be leading a movement, a global movement. And that was like, whoa, and that is really, for me, that's knowingly heading into the unknown. But it was a great challenge.
But yeah, I'm just pondering that one. That was a great challenge, wasn't it? Oh, that's a whole nother level. Yeah, so for me, going knowingly is choosing to go as well as going knowingly, right? So I think if we're worried, fearful, or uncertain about the future, there are so many ways to go with more confidence and more knowingly. There's so much wisdom and experience that we've picked up through life. So at whatever point we are in life, we've already accumulated a load of intuition, wisdom, experience, intelligence, skills, strengths, and so on. So it's good to, stock take and know that there's a load of stuff we know, even if the next bit is an unknown thing. You know, we are bringing a whole toolkit of capability with this. And then for me also there's a thing about hindsight and insight and foresight. So hindsight is what do we already know. Insight is like you've just had an aha moment, right? And then foresight, what's likely to happen using anticipatory thinking, scenario planning, you know, crisis and risk management planning. There's so much we can also do to look ahead, even if we've never experienced or never known the thing we're about to do. So, and then there's the leap of faith, right? There's the being in full flow and adapting as we go. So there's so much packed into that going knowingly into the unknown in different levels. But yeah, it's a great concept. The contradiction or the contrast between knowing and not knowing. And if we know too much, and if we keep doing what we know, then we don't expand and grow and change. So I think knowing is a cruel mindset is a great phrase, right? If we think we know everything, then it shuts us down and
Yeah.
we're not open to receive or learn or grow or understand or listen. So there's something cool in not knowing and being comfortable with not knowing. And I think in this day and age, we try and have 100% knowledge or certainty, and that doesn't always work.
Yeah, that's no, I think it's really, really important. I refer a lot of people, and I referred someone into probably one of the world's top publishing experts, actually. And after the somebody I'd interviewed, and after I'd referred them, my friend who referred it to, Wendy, we had a little chat, and she said, and I said, "How did you get on?" She said, "Well, Chris," she said, "unfortunately, I can't help anybody who knows everything.
Mm,
I can't help somebody who knows everything."
mm,
And I thought, what a missed opportunity she had, going into that conversation, feeling like she already knew it all.
mm. Absolutely, yeah. It does shut everything down, doesn't it? And why bother to listen to anyone if you know everything?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
socially too, yeah.
Thank you. It's been an absolutely fascinating first conversation. You're the first person I've interviewed in Ukraine, which is live from Ukraine. So thank you for that. But what an amazing story that you start to share with Ukraine and your work around adventure psychology. I can see how it could be really valuable to people in the business world when it comes to taking on new challenges, resilience, and building confidence and teamwork. And so we're going to talk a little bit more about that after the break, some of the sort of practical lessons from your work. And we'll also talk just a little bit more about hopeful and what people might learn from your. We need more heroes, because we've not talked about heroes yet, so we need to look into that. So back again with you all in just a couple of minutes. I do recommend, if you're just sitting somewhere and you're listening to this, take out a pen and a piece of paper and identify 2 or 3 golden nuggets that relate to you that you could take away and apply. I think it's always worthwhile just doing that, and it's sometimes just a single thing that you take away from a conversation like this has the potential to change your future. Back again with you in just a couple of minutes. Join us after the break. Hi, this is Chris Cooper. I'm with Paula Reid, and well, Paula's amazing story and her adventure psychology work. We've talked about Ukraine. We're going to talk a bit, get onto the point of why we need more heroes as well. I think that's a really important, fundamental conversation today. And this interview will stick in my mind. I've never had an interview yet where both my guests in Ukraine. I'm in the UK, and Jordan, who's our engineer, is in Phoenix, and it's 90 degrees plus in all three locations, which says something about the world at the moment, I suspect. What's going on? So, okay. So, tell us a little bit about any sort of practical lessons from your adventures that really have helped some of your clients. That might be a good place to start.
Wow, that's a big one, because there's hundreds.
and yeah, and lead us into the heroes. Why that's important too.
It's while I'm thinking about that one, for me there's a massive mindset thing as well as really pragmatic, even tiny little tasks. There's the whole range, but I do think just the mindset is massive and it affects everything. So one of the questions I quite often ask people, which I'll ask everyone listening now, is if you individually think, and you have a think, Chris, I put you on the spot now, what percentage of your performance, of your outcome, would you put down to what's going on in here?
Oh God.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. So it could be great performance, it could be awful performance, but what percentage of that do you feel is affected by your attitude?
I think all of it.
Wow. So, so it's an interesting. I hope your listeners are genuinely thinking about that one, because that's one of the first questions I ask if I'm doing like a leadership workshop. I get individuals to go around the room and say just a percentage, just a number, before we start rationalizing and justifying why we've said that number. So Chris, why do you think all of it? How come attitude or mindset is affecting so much of your performance?
Well, I think it's. I was thinking about it being the outcome being successful in some way, and maybe how I perceive success could be different to others. Because for me, it's about keeping relationships intact and it's achieving the results and the outcome that you want. I know if I was to turn up in a lousy mood with not in a good frame of mind, that I wouldn't get the result that I necessarily wanted. So I would say that in terms of the quality of the output, I think it's really impacted by your mindset and your attitude. But sometimes I guess you can get results by anyway. But for me, I think I know that I need to be in a good place each day, and make sure in those pivotal moments when something is significant that I'm able to be at my best, or else I don't tend to get the outcomes that I might want. So I don't know I don't know if you agree in any way. I don't know.
As I say to everyone, there's no such thing as a right answer on this one, but the average score I get over hundreds and thousands of people have asked is about 86.5%.
Yeah, that's fine. I was thinking about 90% in my head, actually. Yeah.
But some people say 100%, which I love. I love the 100%ers, as I call them, because it means their whole attitude, their belief is 100%, and that is a demonstration of it in itself, right? That people say 100%, they just go 100%. Great, yay. But basically, a lot of what we do is affected by our choices, right? Our attitude towards it, or our mindset. So if you think about it, that then affects our whole life.
Yeah.
The way we go about things, the things we choose to approach. The fact I'm in Ukraine is a choice. It's an attitude that I choose to take on. So that's the first thing I normally talk about, which isn't practical, but it touches everything. It touches the way we look at the world and the way we interact with the world, right? Because it's based on our beliefs. So, and with leaders especially, I know a lot of your audience are leaders. Their mindset affects others so strongly with their leadership behaviors and attitude, but also the culture of their company is everyone's, it's the collection of everyone's mindset. So it's huge. It's huge. So I talk about that, but then I talk about so many other things, right down to, as I say, sort of small tasks and tools. I talk a lot about risk and fear management, for instance. So before I left for the South Pole, skiing to South Pole, I had a list of about 30 things that were worrying me. So going knowingly into the unknown, one of the things you can do is like, okay, what are all the things that could go wrong, or what are all the things that I'm anxious about? And then you list them down, and that already is a good exercise, because then you're already putting a name on these things and recognizing them. But then I always suggest that people divide them into risks and fears, because they're different. Risks are objective, things that can happen. Fears are subjective human thoughts or emotions. So you already then got two columns of things that are coming up if you've got something that you're about to do, a venture or adventure. Divide them into risks and fears. Apply risk management, of course, to all the risks. We know about risk strategy and risk management. There are ways of dealing with risk. I think there's 6 main ways, for instance. With the fears, though, there's a bunch of other strategies, because it's more human and internal and unique to each of us. Some people are afraid of spiders, some aren't, right? So there's risk coping mechanisms too. So that's that's something that I talk about, and it just seems to make sense to have that approach to things that we're worried about or scared of, or an uncertain adventure or venture ahead.
So let's use that example then of that concept there of managing risk and risk versus fear, and apply that to visiting Ukraine to do the kind of work you're doing. How did you work that through? A lot of people have visited with Hopeful, have gone and to Ukraine. I think David told me a while back it was over 600 people have come and helped and supported. They've obviously gone through that, and actually I think people come back, in some way enriched, but challenged mentally, but generally they come back safe. So that's quite interesting. Whereas a lot of people will think, I just can't put, I couldn't go to Ukraine because it's risky.
Yeah, absolutely, exactly that, Chris. And when I first went, everyone's like, "What are you doing? You're crazy. How risky, how ridiculous, how dangerous, how..." Even some people felt it was very selfish of me to go out because potentially I could become a problem and need rescuing or something. So you get a whole range of reactions. But now, of course, it's my 8th time, and everyone goes, "Good on you, out you go, do your great stuff." But loads of risks out here, but I would say more fear than risk out here, right? So quite often, volunteers especially, we talk about, what on earth are we doing out here? Why are we here? It is kind of crazy. And we talk about what if, and maybe dying or getting hit by a missile, let's say. The likelihood of that, so that for me is more of a fear than a risk. Because the likelihood of that is tiny. And one statistic I tell myself, which is a bit out of date now, but let's say 0.01%, I don't know, of Ukrainians, of civilian Ukrainians have been injured. I don't know the exact number now. I used to know it. They live here 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for 4.5 years during the war. I come for 3 weeks. So therefore, if you do the maths, the likelihood of me getting hit is very slim. And if I was at home, crossing the road is the classic, isn't it? I could still get hit. So for me, there's some rationalization or mathematics or risk assessment going on there, where the likelihood of me actually getting hit out here is tiny, and probably just as much danger as if I'd stayed at home for the same 3 weeks. So there's things like that. There's definitely fear out here, but it's amazing how we adapt. So people are probably fairly aware now that with the Ukrainians, they go about their daily lives when the air raid siren goes off, you just carry on. You don't even twitch or look at your phone or stop walking. The air raid siren might be going off out here 3, 4, 5 times a day. You just carry on. There's no response. If you hear incoming noise, you start to recognize the noise of an incoming missile, you still might carry on because you get familiar with the noise of them coming in or going out, whether they're friendly or enemy missiles. And you might check the app on your phone because there's amazing intel on the apps on our phone about the attacks and when they're likely to arrive in your city. So it's incredible how much we adapt. And now I'm on my 8th trip. I go to sleep knowing that there's incoming missiles where I am, because you can't just run to the shelter every 5 minutes. So there's risk management. Know where the shelter is. Sleep away from the windows, because a blast might obviously, make the windows blow. If it's getting noisy, look at what the locals do. If the locals are running, then it's a good sign that you should run. Keep 2 walls between you and, there's things you can do which are risk management. But the fear thing, just we adapt. And to the point where I come out now and, I don't even flinch when an air raid siren goes off anymore. It's fascinating, isn't it?
Isn't it? It is. And so do you think, this, it's almost like this response to fear, because with all of your adventures and the things that you've done, is it like a muscle that you become more resilient and you become more naturally courageous and less bothered by things as a consequence of the experiences that you put yourself through?
Absolutely. So I think resilience as well, and courage, if you want to call it that, or ability to cope with fear, absolutely is a muscle. The more you do, the more you can do, I always think. So I don't know. I suppose I'm quite a tough cookie anyway. I don't know why or how. When I was born, I don't know, but it definitely is definitely a muscle. There's a skill set in coping, knowing where to look, where to go, how to use your phone, things like that. But it's definitely a muscle, and the same with resilience. Yeah, which goes back to the mindset really. What's when we see something that's scary, how do we respond? So it's that choice again about how do we respond, what goes through our mind, like intuitively and so quickly, with how to respond again. It's that choice, isn't it, to respond and not react.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. So tell us a little bit about your TEDx talk, and we need more heroes.
So my first TEDx talk I did a while back was about living life to the full, and it was about like having a bucket list and making the most of life and kicking the what's it out of it, and doing, leading a rich and colorful life. And that's great, but it almost felt quite selfish. Whereas this one is about helping others. And I'm so pleased I've done them both, because in my mind, one was quite sort of selfish about making the most of life and having a rich and powerful time, which I still believe in. But this one was much more about outward looking. So helping others, helping the world, being, making the world a better place for our impact. And that goes with nature as much as other people. So I've got the master's degree in positive psychology, so there's an element of that, but there's also a model, if you like, called the hero's journey,
Yep.
which is a classic. If you think of any film or book or fairy story, it always contains a hero's journey. So someone in their known ordinary world gets a call to adventure, a knock on the door, or a white rabbit, or a blue or red pill in the Matrix. There's a call to adventure, and you can choose to go on the adventure. There's that choice again, go knowingly into the unknown. And then you on the adventure, you've got the battles and the challenges and the enemies and the witches and the dragons and the whatever it is in that story to fight, to cope with, to deal with. But you've also got good people helping you, and fairies and allies and so on. And ultimately there's the nadir, the darkest, deepest, worst point in the film or the book, or the experience where you feel like your lowest ebb, but then ultimately there's always an up after a down, and you climb back up. You then start to build your resilience and your strengths, and you've got your sword and your shield now, and you return to your world more heroic than if you hadn't gone through all those experiences. So if you think about Harry Potter or Skywalker or any of these heroic characters in a book or film, they go through some tough times, but boy, do they come back stronger and better for it. But not only that, we come back more able to help others. Like you said before, Chris, the more you experience, the more you do, the more you push yourself, the more you can then help others or make the world a better place or be strong for other people or to role model the way. So that for me is about being a bit more heroic, not necessarily wearing a cape and a superhero outfit, not necessarily going to Ukraine, which, is at one extreme end of the scale, but just doing something to make the world a better place. And for me, that means getting out of the armchair, not being so comfortable, and being more aware of what's going on in the world, and just doing acts of kindness or courage to tilt the scales to make the world a better place.
Yeah, what wonderful. Do you think are we lacking today in the media being interested in role models? So I'm just thinking, we focus our attention on politicians, and it often feels like there's a lot of people. There's a number of people out there who I wouldn't want my kids to be following and learning traits from, who are leading countries, etc. Is there more scope and need to find heroes? We don't have Nelson Mandela anymore, or Gandhi, or we seem to have lost some of those figures. Or are they there, but we just don't we just aren't aware of them? I think the reality is I try and highlight some of them. That's on this show, really.
You're broadcasting, as it were, the traits and behaviors and people that perhaps we should learn from or be inspired by, aren't you?
I mean, it's just a call. I was saying we need more heroes. It's a call saying we need more heroes. We need more people to step up and make a difference. And I'm getting at.
Yeah, and it's a call to you, whoever's listening. It's not waiting for that person to come along. I do honestly feel that we might be lacking a few huge names, huge role model people. If I thought about it and it wasn't so blooming hot, I'd probably be able to come up with a list, right? We both could. So I think we both need heroic characters who are, I don't know, visible and well known, let's say. But also, there's of course so much more now about social media and reality TV, right? So it's much more about the ordinary person these days, be it through social media or reality TV, the influencer, whatever you want to call them. But I honestly believe we can be inspired also by our next door neighbour or the other kid in the school playground. But so everyone and anyone. But I think being heroic is infectious. Okay, so I think we can, by doing the right thing. I always just call it doing the right thing, whatever that is. I think that's infectious, and I think if we personally choose to do the right thing and do an action, small or great, that is the right thing, then that can be infectious, and we can inspire and spark and strengthen others to also do the right thing. Otherwise we feel overwhelmed and useless or victims of the big stuff, the big horrible stuff that's going on all over the world. So if we each do our thing, and if we each take positive action, do what we can, control the controllables, work with our neighbours, our environment, our community, then that's infectious. Otherwise we give up or we become lazy, and that's not good.
Yeah, Yeah, and I hope if you listen to this show, you hear lots of examples of people who, in their own way, are finding find different avenues and to contribute to good. Quite often in their maybe the last 20, 30 years of their career, when all of that experience that they've had, maybe in corporate roles and things like that, comes together, and then there becomes a desire actually to be able to either leave some sort of legacy or utilize all your wisdom and knowledge in a way that does good. So I think this show, we're trying to encourage you as well to think about that. How do you, who are you? Where were you in your flow, as Paula puts it? Where can you be most useful and contribute, and be able to one day sit back and look back and think, actually, I did a good job. I did all right. I did all right, as you're certainly doing, Paula. How can people get involved with and help Hopeful if?
So we used to use, as you said, 600 volunteers out here, but unfortunately we've had to pull back a lot because mostly because of the drones. They're far-reaching, and the dangers encroached right across the country beyond the front line. So unfortunately we've had to withdraw a lot of the volunteer action, and now it's much more about enabling the locals, enabling and facilitating the Ukrainians themselves to do our good work, to carry on our good work. So really, unless they want to yomp for 80 kilometers in the Carpathian Mountains in August, in which case get in touch with me, please. Then really it's about donations. So we've got a website, of course. It's hopeful.org.uk, and it's really now about donations because our money has run very low. Interest in Ukraine has ebbed. I'm not saying everyone's forgotten it, but donations and generosity has died off a bit after 4.5 years, of course. But we're continuing to work out here, and as you said, there's much more about rehabilitation now because we've got all these casualties of war, mentally and physically. So there's a much more tougher environment out here to cope with all the wounded, as well as continue to fight along the front line. So there's a lot of work going on. So really, please, anyone can donate from £1 to £10,000. We've got dog shelters where they can't even afford to feed the dogs. There's a place, 400 dogs, one lady and an old gentleman trying to feed them all with whatever food they can get hold of. They can't afford the vet's bills, and the dogs are living in tiny wooden kennels which need rebuilding. Yep. There's all the veterans that are going through a 3-day mental health program, which has to be slow and small because it's so important to get right. So that's slowly spreading around Ukraine. And we're building that shelter to pair up veterans with dogs, which is fantastic. And we're still doing the pizza operations out here. We've served over 3 million pizzas in 1,800 cities and towns all over Ukraine. And it goes down well. Everyone loves a pizza. Some people are genuinely in need of hot cooked food. Some people are kind of okay food-wise, but the fact we are sharing free food and hot drinks, it's about the love and the warmth and the respect and just a moment of normality and laughter and connection. And it brings communities together. So there's so much work that we're doing out here.
Well, and I guess people could also, if people check out Wild Fox events, there's some David, who's the founder, Fox Pitt, who's the founder of Hopeful. He puts on amazing events in Scotland, endurance events, and you can enter those events, and you could then raise money for Hopeful at the same time. I did one in 2019, and it was absolutely incredible, a quadrathlon. David, it was amazing, one of the most amazing days of my life. I still struggle running now as a consequence, but it was absolutely brilliant.
Don't say that.
Absolutely brilliant. No. Most people are probably a bit more just, but it was amazing. And those people I've inspired to go and spoken to have gone and done it since. They've absolutely loved it. It was one of the best days of my life. So that's another way. We're gonna have to end there, I'm afraid, Paula. I just want to, huge respect. I think you are a hero for the work that you are doing, and that being out in Ukraine for the 8th time as well. If you want to find out more about Paula's work, paulareid.com. Sounds like if you've got an organisation there and you want someone to come and talk to you or help your senior execs and your exec team to get in the right mindset and to navigate things, knowingly going into the unknown, because there's a lot of that at the moment in this world. Paula sounds a great person to get in touch with. And then check out hopeful.org.uk. On next week's show, we have Jim Lebenthal. Jim is from a famous Wall Street family. He's the chief market strategist for a Wall Street firm called Cerity, but he's also for 13 years been live on CNBC TV every week as a stock picker. He's a wonderful man and really inspiring, and he's just launched a new book, so we're going to talk about that next week from Wall Street. So once again, Paula, thank you so much for joining us, and in this incredible heat, sending you all lots of love over there in Ukraine, and we're all thinking about you. And don't forget about Ukraine. It's so easy to forget about the people out there. We need to all, give support, donate, help any way that we can, because we can't let the kind of horrendous behaviour that's been going on continue in this world. We need to eradicate that and move on. But we need to support and love those people, and remember, give them hope as well, which I know you've been doing. So thank you for everything, Paula.
Thank you, Chris.
Got any questions or comments? You can drop me an email at chris@chriscooper.co.uk. Do join us again next week, and you'll be able to, I'm sure, reach Paula through her website if you want to connect and talk to her about coming and speaking for you, or whatever workshops or whatever you would like. So take care, everybody.